The Handkerchief by Great 78. Chapter 37. There's never good news in the middle of the night. 30 minutes later, the bats had finally stopped streaming from his nostrils, and their urine was mercifully blown into the pink tissues in the frilly lace box on Professor Umbridge's desk. Only Millie and Edwina had woken up. Vince and Warrington looked to be out for the night. Draco sent the girls back to the Slytherin common room, and said that he was sure that Professor Umbridge would call if they were needed again. Draco clattered back down the stairs to Professor Snape's office, meeting him just outside of the Slytherin common room. Snape pulled him inside a nearby broom cupboard and closed the door. Draco tried not to think about all of the lewdness that had probably happened in this very broom cupboard. Unbidden, an image jumped into his mind of holding Hermione close and kissing her neck, his hands ghosting over the soft skin of her thigh just under her skirt. The image seemed so real that for a brief moment he nearly forgot that he was standing practically nose to nose with his professor. Professor Snape sighed heavily. "Your occlumency, Draco." "Sorry." Draco pictured rows upon rows of vials, stoppers, stoppered flasks, bottles, cauldrons bubbling, and stirring sticks. "Thank you. Now, where is Potter?" "I don't know. He and Hermione took Professor Umbridge into the Forbidden Forest. I think they're hoping that something gnarly of Hagrid's is going to take her out for them." "Yes, there's likely a thing or two that would do that." Professor Snape smirked. "And the rest of them? Are Warrington and the others still holding them?" "No, they all got away. I mentioned to them before they fought back where Potter and Granger went, so perhaps they went to go find them." "We need to find Potter. I've spoken with Sirius, and he's fine. I don't know what the Dark Lord showed Potter, but I'm afraid he might act upon it." Mercifully, Snape opened the door and exited, and Draco, glad to escape the cupboard, followed the professor. The two wizards hurried into the Forbidden Forest, and Draco wondered yet again why they had to go in here when it was growing dark. Could nothing be done in daylight? After a moment, Snape halted, throwing out an arm to stop Draco. They listened, and soon a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness next to them. Draco forgot to breathe for a moment. It was a centaur. His red hair and beard fell over a muscular man's chest, which turned into a muscular chestnut-colored horse body. Draco was disturbed when the thought occurred to him that this centaur looked like a really jacked Weasley brother in horse form. "Hello, Ronan," said Snape in greeting. "Have you seen a group of our students?" "They were here, Severus. They have departed. They spoke of going to the ministry in London." Snape grimaced. "Did they take brooms?" Draco was sure it would be a long and miserable broom ride to London from here. "No. Some of Hagrid's nice thestrals came for them." "There was an older witch as well. Pink clothes and a hair bow. Where is she?" "Ah, yes. Several in our herd found her presence distasteful. She was taken away by some of the more aggressive of our kin. I feel certain that she will live, however." Draco suppressed a laugh. Snape eyed him sharply, but Draco couldn't help but notice that the older wizard also fought to keep his face expressionless. Ronan continued, "I believe the giant was mostly unharmed as well." Now Snape's eyebrows rose into his hair. "Giant." Hours passed. After several messages to Hermione on his handkerchief went unanswered, Draco felt himself going spare. He had flu-called his mother, hoping to find her alone. After talking with her, he wished instead that his father had been with her. "Draco! Oh, heavens! I'm so glad to see you're safe!" Narcissa had been crying. Her hair hung in lank pieces, indicating that she'd been running her hands through it repeatedly. "Mom, what's going on? Did something happen?" Your aunt, Bellatrix, she came for your father. There were several of them, 12 or so altogether. Bellatrix's husband and his brother, Wendell Crabbe. Some I didn't know." "What? Who? Where did they go?" Draco faltered, afraid of the answers. "Bellatrix said there was a job at the ministry, that they were needed. She said the Dark Lord was sending them. God, Draco, it's starting all over again." Narcissa's voice cracked. Tears ran unchecked down her cheeks. "Just before she left, she said, thank you for sending the elf. Draco, I think Granger may have helped her." "Mum!" Draco felt the back of his throat tighten. His own eyes began to burn. He began to whisper, afraid that if he spoke normally, it would come out as a wail of despair. "Mum, she went there, tonight, with Potter." Narcissa drew in a sharp breath. "My dragon! I'm so sorry." The tears slipped down his cheeks in earnest now. "Mum, what do you think will happen?" His voice wavered. Narcissa could only whisper, "I don't know." She pressed the palms of her hands flat against her face, as though willing the tears back inside. "Draco, tell me you've been practicing occlumency with Severus. If you can't hide this, love, I don't know what will become of us." "I have. I feel I've nearly mastered it." Mentally, Draco began breaking down the events of the night into elements, ingredients, extractions. He corked and stoppered, labelled and categorized. He had to do this. For her. Finally, at 3 o'clock in the morning, his handkerchief grew warm. He'd had it resting between his cheek and his hand, pressed against the pillow, fitfully willing himself to sleep, then willing himself to stay awake when the nightmare started. "We are safe, in hospital wing. Come when you can." He leaped out of bed, still fully dressed from the day before, sliding his feet silently into his shoes. Just as he reached for the door, he looked over at the wizard to his right. Blaise had not slept well that night either, and Draco had a feeling he knew why. Luna Lovegood had been with the group that had disappeared unexpectedly, right after examinations. He reached out, touching the wizard on the arm. Blaise opened his eyes without startling. "They came back. I think they're in the hospital wing, if you want to come with me," he whispered. Blaise rose without a word, tugging on a robe over his pajamas and sliding his feet into his shoes. As they walked as quietly as possible up the stairs to the hospital wing, Blaise asked quietly, "Do you know where they went?" "The Department of Mysteries, at the Ministry. My father and my aunt were there also." Draco stopped, putting a hand on Blaise's shoulder. "Mate, I don't know what happened, or if anyone got hurt. Her message only said, 'We are safe,' not who that 'we' is." Blaise nodded stoically, and they continued, reaching the hospital wing doors. Snape was sitting outside the doors as guard. "I've been expecting you," was all he said in greeting as he stood. "You have 10 minutes. Use silencing charms. The Weasleys and Longbottom have taken sleeping draughts, but there is no guarantee." "Potter?" Draco asked. "Still talking with the headmaster." Snape clipped out brusquely. So Dumbledore had also returned. They had all come back alive. Snape opened the door and allowed them to pass inside. A small pool of light illuminated Luna, who was sitting up, awake. He had to search for Hermione's riotous curls in the semi-darkness for a moment until he found them. He felt Blaise move quickly past him towards Luna, and he made his way to his witch. She was lying on her right side, bandages wrapped around almost everywhere he could see. On her bedside table, 6 potions bottles were neatly lined up. She wore hospital pajamas and held the handkerchief tightly in her hand. "Draco!" she gasped, then winced hard, laying a hand lightly on her side. "My, what the hell? Why did you go there?" He could already hear the tears forming in his voice, and he fought to keep them down. "I was so worried. I called my mother, and she said Lucius and Bellatrix were there. My God, you could have been killed." "Close," she grimaced, with an attempt at humor. "Please don't joke. I don't know what I would do if—" "We made it back. It was a trap, a trick of Voldemort to draw Harry out. But we all came back. Well, no. Your cousin, Sirius. Draco, I overheard Professor Lupin say that he didn't make it. My God, Harry is going to be so upset. I'm so very sorry." Draco was surprised to find himself incredibly saddened at this. Sirius was a cousin he had never met, and now he would never get the chance. He had been the oldest living male of the Black family line, a dubious honor that now fell to Draco. He knew that Sirius had not seen eye to eye with the rest of the Blacks, and thinking back to the visits with Walburga, of the drooling, the yellowed teeth and elf head hooks, he understood why. Sirius had been someone with whom Draco could have identified, someone who had emerged from the Sacred 28 and fought on the side of the good. Now Draco would never know him, and in just a short time, less than a year from now when he reached 17, he would be known officially as Lord Black. "It's all right, Mai. The important thing is that you made it back. How badly are you hurt?" He cupped her face, then took her hands in his. "It's not so bad. I was hit with a curse, but the caster wasn't able to speak it aloud because of my silencing charm. But, to be frank, it is not good." Her wince belied her words. It seemed quite terribly bad, in fact. "Was the caster... was it my—" Draco's silver eyes could not meet hers. He realized his grip was too strong and slackened his hold on her hands. "No, it was Dolohov. But, Draco, everyone was taken to Azkaban. The Auras came with Minister Fudge. They captured everyone except Bellatrix and Voldemort. They escaped. Your father was—" "Good." He kissed her good night, smoothing back her hair from her forehead, straightening her sheets and fluffing her pillows. He knew that tomorrow she would spend her day with Potter and the others, and within a few days they would be back on the train to London. This could possibly be the last private moment they would have for a long time. Tomorrow, everything would change. There would be news articles, photographs splashed across Wizarding Britain. Tomorrow, lines would be drawn, and sides would be chosen. His father, his reputation, his name would be tarnished, under scrutiny, under the boot heel of the Ministry, dragged through the mud. For not the first time in his life, Draco wished that he did not have to carry the mantle of Malfoy. He met Blaise at the door, and they left together. Professor Snape stopped them just outside. "Draco, Madame Pomfrey needs a large quantity of very difficult-to-brew potions to treat Miss Granger's injuries. As you have expressed an interest in a career in potions, I thought perhaps you could assist me in their preparation." "Yes, Professor, I'd like to help. Very much so. Very well. Meet me in my office at 9 tomorrow morning." As he and Blaise made their way to the dungeons, the relief at being able to do something, anything to help her, was immeasurable. "Luna okay?" he asked with the graciousness and relief he hadn't felt an hour before. "I'm not sure what you mean. Who?" Blaise gave a half-smile. "Don't play dumb with me, mate. It doesn't take a legilimens to read that situation." Draco smirked. Blaise's smile widened. "She's perfect." As he and Blaise entered the Slytherin common room, a small movement caught his eye. Dobby was waiting up for them. Blaise waved goodnight and set off for the dormitory, leaving him with the elf.
"Draco Malfoy? Dobby's friend Tiffy asked Dobby to come. Mistress Narcissa needs to speak with Draco tonight."
"Thank you, Dobby," Draco said, and the elf popped away.
"Draco."
Narcissa looked even worse than she had hours before. "Mum, I heard he was taken," Draco said somberly.
"Yes, but, Draco, when Bellatrix and the Dark Lord escaped, they came here."
Narcissa's voice struggled to maintain her composure. Now it was Draco's turn to nearly lose control of himself. "What do you mean?" he whisper-shouted.
"Bellatrix said that because Lucius failed to secure whatever it was they were seeking there, that to make up for this grievous mistake, we should act as hosts for the Dark Lord. She and you know who arrived here a few hours ago and demanded rooms. He brought a snake."
This last part was delivered with disgust and disbelief, as though this were the worst part of the news. "Mum, they can't."
"I'm afraid that they have, Draco. We're going to need to maintain constant vigilance whilst they stay here. I don't know what to do. Draco, there are dark plans for the future, and I'm worried for you."
"What do you mean, Mum?" he asked, a sinking feeling in his stomach.
"Bella says that because Sirius is... you're going to be considered the head of House of Black, and with Lucius imprisoned, you're the head of the House of Malfoy as well, and as such, you'll need to stand in for Lucius."
A wave of nausea washed over him, and he fought to stay upright. "Mum, please." Tears began falling from his eyes, small hisses of green steam rising up as they fell into the fireplace grate below him.
"My dragon,"
Narcissa wept. He had not slept, having paced the common room for the past several hours, until other students began coming in to head to breakfast. It was hard to believe that most people were going about their day as usual, looking forward to a bit of relaxation until the train departed. Vince and Greg were seated on their beds when he finally entered the dormitory to change. He still wore the robes, shirt, and trousers from the day before. It was hard to believe he'd worn this for his History of Magic examination. He'd hoped to steal away after the exam and find a secluded spot somewhere along the shores of the Black Lake to sit with Hermione. Was that only yesterday?
"Draco, you heard? They've caught our fathers. My father... something's happened to him. They aren't sure if he'll be okay,"
Crabbe said angrily. "I'm sorry to hear that," Draco said mechanically. Theo was lying on his bed atop the bedclothes on his side, facing away from them. He had pulled a pillow over his head, as though to block out everything.
"Let's go eat,"
Greg said, and for once, Draco couldn't be asked to take the piss out on him for wanting to eat. As they exited the stairs from the dungeon, Draco saw Potter ahead, looking troubled but physically unhurt. Draco's breath caught in his chest. Potter, who was stupid enough to fall for a trick of the Dark Lord. Potter, who had gotten his cousin killed before Draco could ever even meet him, thrusting Draco into a head of house role. Potter, who'd gotten Lucius arrested, forcing Draco to take his place at the Dark Lord's side. Potter, who had nearly gotten Hermione killed. For this last thing alone, Draco could happily tear the bastard limb from limb. "You're dead, Potter." Draco stared at him in cold fury. "Funny. You'd think I'd have stopped walking around," Potter drawled. "You're going to pay," said Draco angrily. He felt his composure slipping and fought to control it. "I'm going to make you pay for what you've done," he said. "To my father," he then added, feeling the menacing forms of Vince and Greg at his sides. "Well, I'm terrified now," said the Prat. "I suppose Lord Voldemort's just a warm-up act, compared to you three." Vince and Greg made startled noises. "What's the matter? He's your dad's mate, isn't he?" Professor Snape already had several cauldrons going when he entered the potions laboratory after meeting Potter in the entrance hall. Snape set to briskly chopping potion ingredients. He paused when Draco just stood there, fuming. He was still seething from his encounter with Potter. "Draco, I've spoken with your mother. I regret to hear of the situation in which you find yourself." Draco only nodded once. He didn't trust himself to speak of it. "Just know this, Draco. No matter what is asked of you, no matter the situation you find yourself in, you must keep control of your mind. If that is taken away from you, all may be lost." The two wizards locked eyes for several moments. Then Draco looked away to gather himself. "What does Madame Pomfrey need, sir?" Rows upon rows of bottled vials, stoppered flasks, labelled and neatly stored away. Ingredients, evenly chopped and placed in identical containers. Draco felt himself sink into the potions cupboard of his mind, and he began to work. As the Hogwarts Express pulled away from Hogsmeade, Draco's sense of foreboding grew. He looked around the compartment. Most of the Slytherins inside had fathers currently in Azkaban. He needed air. "I'm taking a walk," he announced to no one in particular, then sighed deeply when Vince and Greg stood as well. "You don't have to come," he snapped at them.
"We've got to stick together now, Draco," said Vince softly.
Draco could only give him a look of surprised appreciation. "Okay," he answered simply. When they came upon Potter's group, the other boys insisted on trying to mess with him. Draco joined in, knowing it would not end well for them, but not particularly caring. If Potter went ahead and finished him off, there wouldn't be much left for the Dark Lord, at least. But Potter's crew was ready. The jinxes came from in front of and behind them, and in a trance, Draco found himself rolling on the floor, his body temporarily transfigured into some sort of slug. Surprisingly, it was an improvement over the backed bogey hex. At least the train ride was quiet now. The view from the floor wasn't so bad, he thought. Hours later, they pulled into the station at King's Cross, and Draco watched from the ground as Potter's group trooped out onto the platform.
"Venite incantatem,"
a familiar voice rang out. Vince and Greg jumped up, hurrying away without a glance back. "Thanks, Mai," Draco pulled himself stiffly from the ground where he had been lying as a boneless slug for quite a while. They stepped back into the compartment for privacy.
"You're welcome. Please, don't go around picking fights with anyone else this summer," she implored jokingly.
She removed the handkerchief from her cuff and dabbed at the slime in his hair. "I would never," he chuckled, drawing her into his arms. Tenderly, gently, in a way that he hoped said more than mere words could, Draco kissed her goodbye. It was, he feared, an ending, and not just of the school year. Never would there be this innocence, this openness between them again. He only hoped that that wasn't the end of them. Reaching into his breast pocket, he took out his own handkerchief and dried her tears. Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Handkerchief by Great 78.